standing still and stately. X-Ray Victor 202 touched down at RAF Cosford 2 summers ago. The aircraft's already received visitors and film crews on board, but hadn't officially become the property of the Royal Air Force Museum until now.
We were conscious that the Hercules had served the Royal Air Force for over 40 years. We didn't have an example in the collection, and it's been so significant in that period, supporting the front line in war and peace, humanitarian operations. We've wanted very much to put one on exhibition, and here today we have one.
The C-130 joins 75 other aircraft on display at the visitor attraction, but 4 of its sister K-class planes are still operational for another 6 weeks before the RAF reverts to flying solely the newer J-class until they too are replaced by the Airbus A400M.
I think whenever we get to the 31st of October, there'll be a few grown men crying. It's very strong emotional attachments to the aircraft, partly because of the amount of time that people have spent flying it, but also because of the things that we've done with it.
The Herc tankers and transporters were first in, last out of numerous campaigns and a welcome sight overhead in disaster relief operations. Former pilots and aircrew have an illustrious history to reminisce about.
Mostly operational resupplies, either to patrols, whether that be flying past and delivering sort of resupplies of ammunition or food. So I think the most interesting missions I've done have been whenever we've landed in unprepared strips. I think that's the ones that get the heart rate up the most.
Whether a K or a J, it was cold, noisy and had basic facilities on board. Perhaps the C-130's an acquired taste, like the in-flight catering. And of course there's the vital difference of one has a microwave and one has an old-fashioned oven.
That's true. The food in the K was always been much better than the food on the J.
Did you ever sleep in these beds in here?
Oh, you've got to be joking. They're the most uncomfortable things, the most uncomfortable torture instrument known to man.
Some say it's as archetypal as a Land Rover. Ask anyone what an air transport aircraft looks like, they picture the Hercules. So to land the last of Britain's first, the K will be the end of an era. Well, I'm joined now by Air Vice Marshal Ian Corbett, who first began flying Hercules when they entered service, didn't you?
Indeed, in 1968 was my first time with 47 Squadron at RAF Fairford. The aircraft was just forming with 6 squadrons, based 4 in the UK, 1 in Cyprus and 1 in Singapore, and was operating throughout the world right from the very first day that it came into service.
For you, that was getting your hands on a brand new aircraft, and presumably you were just a junior pilot. Tell us about it.
The aircraft were absolutely brand new. I think the first one I flew had something like 25 flying hours on it, but the beauty of the aircraft was it is flexible, it's got such a variety of roles that it can perform, and it can switch from one to the other quite readily.
Was the Hercules loved from the moment she entered service?
Loved by the aircrew who flew her. Certainly it was a challenge for the engineers who tried to maintain her. It wasn't such a nice aircraft for those who had to travel in the back of the aircraft, particularly over long distances. Although we always used to say it was the perfect aircraft for the paratroopers, because by the time they'd spent about 3 hours in the back of it, they were only too happy to jump out. So it made it the perfect aircraft.
Talk us through moments in your life that you will never forget where Hercules is concerned.
Well, obviously, the beauty of the aircraft from the crew's point of view was that it didn't go very fast. That was the nice thing about it, and you had some time off. Rather than today, when air travel is get there, spend 14 hours in the back of an aircraft and come out looking like a zombie. We used to spend 4 days getting there and come out with a big smile on our faces. So much better.
Ready to go on a safari or enjoy a nice bar somewhere in the Middle East?
Both.
And in terms of how she's lasted so long, what do you put that down to?
Well, she's been known as the ubiquitous aircraft because she just goes on and on. Any role you want, any change of role that the Air Force has had over the years, the aircraft has adapted to it. And it's the flexibility that the aircraft has. The proof of the pudding is they're still making these aircraft now, and they look very similar to what they did in the 1950s when they first designed and built these aircraft. So they got it right at the beginning, and they're continuing to produce them.
But they're still making them now, and indeed the RAF is still flying some of them. So is it strange for you to see it now consigned to relic status in a museum?
Obviously it's sad to see an aircraft disappear out of service that you've been flying, but I think the nice thing is that this aircraft has now been donated to the RAF Museum. It is going to be on display for the public, and the history of what we did with the aircraft over those 45 years is going to be kept and be relayed to the public, and they can relive it for us.
Marshal Corbett, thank you so much for sharing your memories of the Hercules. And this very aircraft, X-Ray Victor 202, is now here on display at the museum at Cosford for everyone to come and have a look at. Julie Knox, Forces News, the RAF Museum.